Wala ra, miss.
Okay, I will continue. Akong paspasan. Okay, so there are two category in giving a very insightful and wonderful experience to your students. First is the direct purposeful experience, and the second one is the contrived experience. So what are these things? So in the teaching education for your students, we provide a lot of activities, you provide a lot of approaches and techniques, but this can be divided into two things. So sometimes in our learning experience dili ta maka-identify kung direct purposeful ba na siya or contrived, but somehow this is the underlying theory that goes with it. So when we say direct, purposeful experiences, meaning they are concrete, they are first-hand experience, and these usually happen sa mga physical education students or teachers. Why? Because you cannot uh, contrive the dancing part. Di ba? Di man pwede nga mag-badminton ang lesson niya. Wala sila nga, sige, kuan lang kanang ang robot lay magkuan perform. So usually for physical education, it's the direct and the purposeful experiences. They are the first-hand activities that students would perform. Sometimes also these things are rich with all the senses for a child, for a student to learn in her lesson from the teacher. Another example can also be a making of your material or your PowerPoint presentation. While we also have the indirect experiences, meaning they are experiences being shared by people. We listen from their stories. We may not own those experiences, but still we are able to experience that one in the future. Just like you hear someone's video or YouTube or vlog in climbing a tree or climbing a mountain or a lot of things. Now, why are these things important? Because there are lessons and concepts in which we cannot do in a direct, purposeful way. For example, we cannot go and experience going to a volcano. We cannot go experience going to planet Mars or diving into the deep of the marine life to be able to understand those aquatic resources. We cannot also perform kung ano mo, i-perform ni mo din ha ang kuan mga other activities that can really harm the students. So it should be indirect experiences. Now, if direct, purposeful experiences makes us things creative, makes us effective, what does this imply to our teaching learning process? Why do you think it's important as a teacher to provide direct and purposeful experiences? Any take or any answer would like to share? Paningog sad mo ba? So, why do we need to provide direct, purposeful experiences?
Kuan,
Miss,
miss.
sige go. Raul.
It would be best, miss, if we're going to teach the kanang murag first hand experiences, miss, kay feel ko mas effective siya, miss, i-compare sa kanang kuan, miss, sa kanang dili sa indirect, kay if direct, so na experience man ani mo, so murag sayo na kay itudlo sa imong students.
Can you cite one example?
For example, miss, sa mua like the kanang mga kanang kanang PE instructors, miss, like for example, if magklase mi about volleyball, miss, na if you are a teacher kanang who kanang dili kay kakabalo mo volleyball, so, like ma'am kanang mo kuan ka makabalo ka volleyball kay gatan-aw ra ka or kanang dili siya ka player, so murag dili effective kayo ang imong pag-teach sa students sa nga sport, miss.
Yes, correct. So it should be practice, no, and you should be exposed with that one. Okay, thank you. I have a question for the PE teachers. If you're a PE teacher, does it require you to learn all those sports and also learn musical instruments?
No, miss.
Pero at least maka-learn mo og certain. musical
Oh yes, miss,
instrument.
at least ka murag basic ra miss, or murag ang mga ano lang basics lang sa sports. Pero sa musical miss kay like wala man kay miga touch miss, like usara among major nga music miss, which is ang rhythmic music in dance education, like pero dili jud kay siya kanang heavy music miss, kanang murag ang usaha lang namo pag timing sa music kanang when it comes to dancing.
Ah, okay. Thank you, Raul. Okay, who else wants to share from the general education? Saan naman to? Naman to ni-share kanina. Was it you, Aya?
Cheska miss.
Ah, Cheska, yes.
Miss, it's important to have direct purposeful experiences or to kanang apply this type of teaching sa students kay ako personally miss mo believe man ko sa kaning philosophy ni John Dewey miss ba katong sa progressivism kay miss, which is marag nakuha niya from pragmatism. Kay ako mismo mas maka-learn ko if ako mismo ang mo engage ang mubuhat sa mga open mic ba ni? Okay. Ako mismo ang mo buhat. So if it's more effective to teach the students if sila mismo maka-experience kay ako mismo if kaya for example experiment in science or if sa elementary mixing colors that they would appreciate nga um with the use of primary colors maka-create they sila og another with mixing kanang primary colors maka come up they sila og gitawag na to nga secondary color. So kanang the more nga ma-engage ang students, the more sila makakuha kanang idea o the more nga mo stick sa ilang mind kaya ang experience man nila is kanang maka ma-instill jud gani sa mind. It's like ingon pa sa kong kuya is learning by doing.
Okay, correct. So we have this concept of John Dewey, the learning by doing, or we allow the more senses now involved, the more it would retain and the more meaningful the learning. Do you agree?
Yes miss.
No? Kung dagan kay senses murag mas lingaw siya and it's somehow we cannot forget about it. So first, there are also guidelines. So first, we let our students have the opportunity to learn by doing with these different concepts. Another thing is to we use real things as our instructional materials and make sure that it is contextualized. It is also localized, meaning makita siya diri sa atua. So we give those examples. Next is we let the students also develop their five senses. So we use music. Sometimes we most of the time we forget music, no? But for PE, very relevant nila ang music. We can also use olfactory, the power of sense when you teach science so that they can really have their higher order thinking skills. Another thing is we guide our students to draw their meaning as they have these first-hand experiences. So John Dale mentioned, sorry for that, John Dale mentioned this one. We teach through a rearrangement of what we see as the raw reality, like a specimen, example, but when we direct experiences, we cannot be used properly in its natural setting. So, meaning sometimes there are also experiences that can we cannot really explore. So, John Dale had given to us certain presentation on what are these purposeful experiences. So, first is we wanted to have a direct experiences, but we cannot have this one. Like for example, the revolution around the sun, the representation of the planet and how our planet result into different season like spring, summer, fall, and why Philippines is a tropical country and not able to have this one. So that is why we can still have a direct experience with it by simulation when teacher would provide activity. So another thing is that sometimes students also need to present themselves in a simulation way like when we do a lot of election, that's also a simulation on what we call as the election proper, di ba? When you will be 18 years old, you should be encouraged to vote for your leader, for your president. How about you guys? Are you all registered in the census 2020? Kisa
Yes,
mag
sir.
kisay wala pa.
Yes.
So
Oh,
you
Me.
so you go to your barangay, please make sure that you are registered because it would help. They would give you an ID for validity where it's also useful. So make sure na appeal mo. So another activity for the teacher is to have a direct purposeful like just like elections. So in my preschool, in my kindergarten, what we did is we learned different countries. And one of the student there is teaching us about Korea. So murag issue kay karon ang Koreano. But what we had here is that it was direct and purposeful experience for the students because they were able to um, learn the Korean culture. Somehow the mom also brought Korean food, and the students also tried to wear this handbook. So my students were very engaging. They were very happy, and the kindergarten really loved in exploring Korea, and they even learned some Korean language during that time. So this was 2009. So as you can see in the picture, we were really engaged, and students were really excited. Another activity that I had for the direct purposeful experiences is we were learning about fish. And there's a little fish pond in the school, and we went there. We really tried to catch some fish. So we had a net, and we were trying to explore, teaching the kids everything about color green. Because as you can see there in the picture, we were learning color green. So these were my students before. Another activity that I really loved during summer last year was when I joined in the robotics class. So it was in the campus education Cebu where we learned regarding the robotics. So the children were experiencing, or they create their own algorithm on how their Legos would turn into its own movement. So there is like a connection, and there's also a programming that is going on with their little items. So the kids' goal there is to how to transport one item to the other. So it's like how it can help as this robot or toys elicit the creativity of the child. So this is a competition in Cebu actually. Okay, so with the direct purposeful experiences that we can have for our